Can't Always Cook, and today I'm going to be making some potato soup. Now this is one of my favourite soup recipes just because it's so versatile. It's really nice by itself and you can use it as a base for any creamy based soup recipe. So today I'm going to be trying broccoli and cheddar soup with the potato base, and yeah, like I said, it's just really nice and easy and quick to put together, and it can go with so many different things. So let's just get started. So I'm just going to use some potatoes. I've got normal potatoes and some sweet potatoes. Some milk, I always use full fat. Some chicken thighs, I really like these in particular for making stock. This is just a bunch of stuff that I'm using to make my stock. So basically I've got some black pepper, mixed herbs, some salt, some vinegar, some paprika, soy sauce, chili flakes, and a couple of stock pots. That's lemongrass and ginger and chili on the bottom. About 2 cloves of garlic that have been roughly chopped, some broccoli, and some cheese. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just make the stock. Now I've got 3 pieces of chicken in here which I've washed. There seems to be this thing about not washing chicken. I don't know what that's all about. I always wash my chicken. Just make sure you wash your hands afterwards, that's it. But yeah, anyway, so got some chicken. I'm going to put some water in. Not very much because you don't want to boil it, but enough to make a decent amount of stock. So I've covered maybe about 2/3 of the chicken with water. And then I just need to chuck in everything I'm going to use to make the stock. So I've got some mixed herbs, some black pepper, a little bit of soy sauce. I'm using mirin. I would normally just use apple cider vinegar, but I don't have any of this. But this should work just fine. And yeah, just chuck everything in there. So this is what everything looks like now that I've mixed it all in. You can see the water doesn't come out quite to the top of the chicken. And at this point I'm just going to stab it a little bit. This kind of helps it to cook a bit quicker. And also I feel like it sort of gets the chicken juices to like mix up a bit more with the stock itself. So that's going to go on the stove now for about half an hour to 45 minutes on medium to low heat. And while that's on there, we'll work on the potatoes. Alright, so with the potatoes washed and peeled, what we want to do now is just get them into cubes. They don't necessarily have to be even, but relatively small so that they cook quickly, but big enough so that when they're boiled, you can still, you know, they add a bit to the texture, because some of the potatoes will be blended and others will stay just to give this a bit of texture. To get them into those cube type pieces, I've got slices of potato here, and what I like to do is just roughly cut it up one way and then the other, and that makes it really quick, and you get roughly the same sizes relatively quickly. So let's just do all of that. So this is what I've ended up with, quite a lot, more than I expected, but fine. I will boil this now with a bit of salt, pepper, maybe a few mixed herbs, and yeah, just leave that to do its thing, and then I'll be working on the broccoli next. So for the broccoli, I haven't really thought about what I'm going to do. I think the best thing to do with this is just to steam it lightly, and I'm going to, I think I should use all of it. Looking at proportions, we've got quite a bit of potato, so I think I'm going to use just the whole head, and yeah, I'm just going to use the florets at the top. I'll steam those and then figure out what to do from there. Okay, so the stock is done. It looks great, very rich and very thick. I'm not too sure how much you can see, but let's just get straight on. So we don't need the chicken. I do normally put, sometimes when I make it, I do sort of cut it up, dice it up, and just chuck it in the soup. I'm not sure I'm going to do that this time around. Just because it doesn't really need it. It's quite flavorful. All the flavour for this soup comes out of the stock, which is why I mean, you can buy pre-made stock, but I prefer to make it myself just because I know what is going in there and I can flavour it however I like. Of course you can use, it doesn't have to be chicken stock, it can be vegetable, whatever. But yeah, this is the way that I really like to make it. But anyway, for this stock now, we're going to add some milk. Doesn't need to be too much. Just enough that it changes the colour slightly, so let me just show you what I'm doing. Not very much, just a light splash, enough to sort of change the colour. That's probably not the best explanation for it, but you don't want to take away from the flavour of the stock, so you don't want to add too much. But yeah, approximately a quarter of a little bottle. And then we're going to put that back on low heat for about 5 minutes. Okay, so now that that is simmering nicely, the next thing to do is just to add the potatoes and boil them. Now, I don't want to use all of them because, like I say, I like a sort of chunky texture to this soup. So I'm going to add maybe about 2/3 of them. Yeah, so I've got about that much left over. I'm going to set that aside and I'm just going to mix this in together. And I'm going to blend that with the broccoli. Again, I'm only using about 2/3 of it just because I want to keep a little bit for the end. So now the next thing to do is just blend it. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, so now that that's done, all pureed, I'm going to add in the rest of the potatoes for added texture, and that is everything. Sometimes, like I said, when I get to this stage, I add in the chicken again, but I'm not too sure I'm going to do that this time around. So now that that's done, I'm going to put in a little bit of the broccoli that I had left over, just so that there is some chunky bits as well, and I'm going to leave most of that back there to put in a bowl just before serving. Alright, so the last thing that you want to do is just to add your cheese. So I'm getting a great big handful and just throwing it in there. It should be hot enough that it just melts straight through. Again, I've left some out just because I think it would be good to put in your bowl before serving. But that's pretty much it. It's really easy. It's a great soup to make. It tastes amazing. It's so filling. And yeah, this is the final product. And that's that. Alright, and that's pretty much everything. So, like I was saying, this is a base that you can use for lots of other different soups. Obviously, if you were to do that, you probably don't want the chunks of potato in there, and the main thing that you want to play around with would be the stock. Now, that's one of the main reasons I don't really like buying stock for this soup. It's just that you have much more control over what the end product will be. So, if for instance you wanted to use if you wanted to make a pea and mint soup, you could you'd use a much thinner stock to begin with. So yeah. Alright, so thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it as always. If you choose to experiment with this any kind of way, let me know, and that'll be fun. And I will see you in the next video. Okay, so the stock is